better, there's less disorganization, there's less problem with behavior. Those are the courses you want your kids to be in. On top of that, the increase in Explore scores, it has been documented by the publisher and by ECT very clearly. The higher your Explore score, the higher your ACT score is going to be. And the ACT score is the score that opens up doors to colleges. So we want to maximize our kids' performance on the 8th grade ITBS and the Explore, because that will maximize their capability of getting into the kind of college they want to get to. And I was particularly impressed with that next one, Mark, that this is, to me, sort of a validation that the actual performance of the kids is much higher than we predicted for them in the fall of 6th grade. And to me, that supports the concept that accurately directed intervention can cause student performance gains. That's really not been documented very much. We think of intervention as causing student performance gains, and a lot of intervention doesn't cause gains because the diagnosis is so general that nobody knows what to do. But the diagnosis, when they make errors in 6th grade, is very to the point, and those are the same errors that they will make in the Explore test and on the ACT. And I keep saying, I think I've said this every year, we have to remember that the Explore and ACT and the ITBS are written in the same city, Iowa City. All of those authors belong to the same psychometric association. Half of them got their degree from the University of Iowa. So they may be called different things, but those are the same tests.
If we look at a couple of years, maybe a year past and a couple of years into the future, and we notice the same trend where the actual outperforms the predicted, will it not possibly identify flaws with how we calculate the predicted?
It would, Mark, if...
because our intervention is starting much earlier now than 6th grade.
We really didn't have the good intervention until the last year.
That's why I'm saying if we look out a couple of years.
Didn't. And we didn't get that kind of, I remember the year before this, we were all very disappointed because we did not get that kind of thing. The key thing in my mind, well, two things, Mark, that's a good question, is that we get the same thing next year. We should get the same thing next year because we have actually a better diagnostic system this year than we had. And the other is we could also start looking at other districts. In fact, I've got 3 other districts, and I want to tell you, they didn't get that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think another key thing with your other clients is they're a higher socioeconomic status than us as well.
Yeah, well, two of them certainly are. One of them got tremendous growth, but we only have 9 kids in 8th grade.
Who does the predicting? Do the kids do it, or?
It's a statistical prediction based on about 500 students that have taken the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade ITBS and Explore. So that's taken some time to get, and based on those data, predictions are made.
So John, it's you who make, not you personally, but it is the metrics that you use that make that prediction. Correct. Just like when a student takes Explore, it's the College Board who makes the prediction for their plan, and same thing, plan predicts ACT. So
ITBS is going to use this prediction, perhaps not next year, but the following year. In fact, the publisher has bought out my system. They're going to use the whole system.
Well, I was going to ask that because Kathy Lawrence, when she was here to talk about the new norms, one of the things that was publicized was an ability to predict. And I seem to remember when we first hired you, ITBS did not believe that there was any correlation between ITBS and subsequent ACT. I was quite surprised to see that they were then incorporating that, and I couldn't help believe that perhaps you had something to do with it. So Gina,
our way of thinking.
I did want to add one more thing to your question.
Well, actually, it was Gina's question. I was just trying to make sure that,
Yeah, I was just, and I don't know, like, when it says students significantly below, what is significant? Like, is it 4 points below, or what is
It's
don't
about 12 percentile ranked.
12 percentile rank?
So if we predicted, say, a 69, the student would have to get over 81 before we would say that's significant.
12% percentile rank.
12 percentile ranked.
So plus or minus.
Yeah,
Plus to be significantly above.
That's right. What happens is that the mean goes up and pulls the whole distribution, and some slip into the very high category.
Now, do you ever do the mode, like the score that occurs most often?
No,
You don't?
it's almost except for some business decisions, sales decisions, it's almost a useless average. The median makes some sense. I just did a median for your gate scores. But the mode as a statistical average is only really important to people who sell.
Do you know what the median is for these, or you don't have them with you, do you?
The median for these will be pretty close to the mean
Mhm.
because it's an even distribution.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure.
Can you have any idea why there was a significant drop in the math? It was the only one that we went down.
Yeah.
Even though it was predicted to go, I mean, we're above the predicted mean, but when you look at the bar, a couple slides.
Where are you,
before-
I'm sorry, where are you looking at?
What you call the glitch.
What do you call that?
No,
Well, I
that
don't
wasn't
think
actually
that
what
was
he
the
was talking
glitch.
about.
No, if you go back two more.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Go back to the Explore, I believe
That
that's
one,
what
right.
you're referring
The
to.
core
Yeah.
subjects.
Yeah, I think that what you need to do, so here's math, and it appears to have gone down, but when you look at what actually happened on this one, and you
Right,
look at math, oh, sorry,
the predicted,
the
right.
predicted was, so math actually had the greatest increase above the predicted than reading, English, and science, which is,
Reading had the same mark.
Isn't this the group with the 8 kids that get sophomore year math too? So, I mean, their scores, I would think, would have gone up.
no, actually, as a group, they scored lower in math than last year's 8th grade.
Okay.
The reason, I don't know the answer to your question, I can certainly look it up. You have a small enough group here that if one student decided to take a rest and have a remarkably low score, that would be enough to bring the mean down that small amount. I guess what we need to look for is that it doesn't happen again next year.
I was just curious if you had already
No,
looked at it.
no, I did not.
Okay.
But John, is it not true that the trend in math, though, is that the actual score was above what was predicted that group would score?
Of your 4 areas, math is consistently the strongest on the hand.
Yeah, so I think the point to be made is when you interpret these, if you didn't know anything about this group, you would think, well, these scores went down from last year's group, but actually they scored higher. Their difference between their predicted and actual was higher
Yeah.
than the last year's group.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for John?
I did have one question. Thanks for getting back to me about the NWF. I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, I'll be coming back to that.
Oh, are we not done with this whole report?
John doesn't have anything to do with that portion
Oh.
of it, so I think, correct me if
Okay,
I'm
go
wrong,
ahead.
Mark,
Yeah, I'm
you're
done.
looking for anything that
No.
John could answer for us? Is
Correct,
that-
yeah.
okay.
No, thank you, John.
Can I add one more thing, Mark? before I
Please.
go? I noticed you have a lot of stuff on the SEL in here. I just want to make one comment about that. The SEL is what we call a typical performance test. Explore is a maximum performance test. It's much more reliable to test to see a person's maximum performance than it is to find their typical performance. Because typical performance depends so much not only on where we are, but how we are. If as a teacher, I'm having a really bad day, or someone's been really misbehaving, or I'm having a really good day, or someone's really doing great, it'll change my interpretation of typical behaviors in a very dramatic way. Whereas the reliability of a good achievement test is pretty close to 0.90. The reliability of the very best typical performance test is about 0.6. So I just wanted to make sure before you start that discussion, you understand that those are not reliable tests. And so I think that the decision that you made to drop that is a really good decision.
So John, to be specific, you are referring to the social skills improvement system
Yeah.
that is being referenced in
Yeah.
a subsequent slide.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that before I go.
And John has consulted with us on those results in the past, and
They're just not reliable. I mean, they make no sense.